Merhaba arkadaşlar. Ee, Bu programı İngilizce yapacağız. Tekrar hatırlatayım. Bu arada sesle ilgili bir problemimiz var mı? Merhaba, seslerimiz duyuluyor mu? Hoş geldiniz. Cümleten hoş geldiniz. Evet. For the people, non-Turkish speakers, we are about to do Hocam,
Why?
how are you?
Am I a little bit dark or good?
You're
guess good.
you're a little bit dark, but you're okay.
Okay then.
You seem okay.
Don't let me light too much lights right now because I need melatonin.
This
Hello.
is the first time I think we're gonna be talking to each other in English.
Yes, it feels quite awkward because
It feels a little bit awkward, but it's okay.
yeah,
We'll
but
we'll get used to it.
it's nice. Yes, yes. Thank you very much
Uh,
for inviting me, by the way.
yeah. Good to see you. It's great to have this conversation with you. The reason that I just wanted to let our audience know that the reason that we're doing this in English is because the topic that we're going to be talking about, we already talked about before. This is a message that we would like to give to the whole, to international crowd as well. So that's the reason that we're doing this in English. We're going to be talking about the book that Sinan wrote a while ago, but actually it was a process. It has been going on for 4 years. But this is actually
two and a half years, not 4 years, by the way.
well, from the publisher point of view, it's 4 years. From the writer
Yes,
point of
okay.
view, it's 2 years. And let's meet in the middle. We'll do 3. It's a trilogy, so it makes sense that it took that long. We published already 2 of the trilogy. It's called IFA, which is when we translate it to English, it means the factory defaults of human. It was a challenge for us to do it in English because the abbreviation of the İFA, which is the insanın fabrika ayarları, it actually has a meaning. İFA means to do something, to accomplish something, to make something happen. And it comes from the Arabic word root, which has the same root as the fidelity. So the fidelity means that both Sinan and I owe this to all the people, all the audience right now, because we did something. Well, Sinan did something, and I supported him for something that is a message that was done by a Turkish, but it is for the whole world. So before I got into too much details, could you please introduce you for the people who don't know you?
Okay, probably most of the English speakers do not know me because I always tell stuff in Turkish. I time to time went to different countries and give some little speeches, but I'm at the beginning right now. I'm a biologist by graduation. And after that, when I graduated from Hacettepe University in 1995, I started my academic career as a neuroscientist in several medical schools. And after that, I performed medical lecturing profession for more than 10 years or 11 years. And after that, right now, I am a lecturer in Üsküdar University Psychology Department, and I am working on brain behavior. And also, I'm dealing with public science lecturing right now. For the past 10 years, my main concern is to convey the scientific facts to everyone who interested in a very simple and understandable language. For this, I founded several organizations, and finally, I have Açık Beyin, which is open brain in English. I founded it with my partner, Müge Doğan. And for the last 3 years, we've been teaching neuroscience, human behavior, and the science of decision making in humans, education of neuroscience of education, and the stuff like that to everybody needs that information, including young people, teachers, professionals, so on and so forth. I always talk about the brain, so my name came up like the brain guy in Turkey. I'm not the only one who makes all this, brain information. I read them, I translate them to general public, and I try to, give people the light of science as far as I can do. So this is my main job right now.
Okay, that's
Kerim is my publisher, by the way, and he helps me to convey this message by books and written media.
From my perspective, I lived outside of Turkey for a long time, and it was a great honor working with you because when I first came to this country, I realized in the publishing sector, a lot of exporting stuff was happening. So we were exporting stuff from other civilizations, from Western civilizations. So this is an opportunity for us to have a Turkish guy, a real Turkish guy, an academic who can actually make things easier to understand and give it to people. So I'm very honored to working with you. Now, since we don't have too much time, I'm just going to jump into questions. So we're going to be talking about the book, but mainly about the book, but we're going to go around that. Now, the first question that I have is there a main question or an overarching idea that you have intended to explore through the IFA or FDH that we call it, factory defaults of human?
Yes, factory defaults of human. I can't get used to it because English sounds quite weird because we very get used to the term IFA. We always call it that way. Well, actually, as you mentioned before, it's actually a happy coincidence that we came up with the name IFA or İnsanın Fabrika Ayarları. What was the English? Factory defaults of humans?
The factory defaults of human.
Okay.
I can sometimes get confused with it.
The term factory defaults is actually a kind of saver for us generally when we are dealing with our cell phones and our other electronic equipment, because when there's something wrong, we just push a button and, convert it to its factory settings and everything is done. And generally, most of the times in our lives, we tend to think in that way about ourselves. Some, different things may go wrong. Sometimes we find ourselves in, obstacles. And most of the time we ask ourselves if I would have a, reset button and begin everything from the beginning. So actually, this term accidentally emerged in a TV show that I invited when I was talking about, basic settings of human beings. I just popped up with the term the factory settings. So it's just sticked onto me, and I liked it because of this abbreviation that you talked about right now, IFA, because it actually conveys a lot of meaning to the listener. So I continued to advocate that idea, and I expanded it. And as a result, I have a list of 5 very basic settings valid for all human beings around the world. So it's actually looks like a bold idea, but it's not a very new or original idea. All kinds of traditions, religions, and ideologies, and most of the medical professionals are actually more or less advising the similar things to the people. What I do in this text or in this story, I actually put all of them together and bind them inside a story narrated in terms of neuroevolutionary story of human being. What do I mean by this? We are a biological organism. This is a fact. So we have a body. It's quite the same with the other organisms. But if we look to our bodies from a distance, the general shape and properties of our bodies, it is very naked and very useless in terms of the natural world environment. we are not suitable for any kind of environment in the world. We cannot live naked in any place. So at least we need to wear something on to, continue our life. And this is actually very unique to humans. If you look all other animals, for example, or all other living beings, including plants, every kind of living creature has its own body shape, very well adapted to its own environment, and they have no problem with living with that. But when you look to the humans, it's just the opposite. We are not adapted to any specific environment, and we are very naked, very weak, we don't have anything. So that's a problem, actually. If you look at it that way, you need to answer that simple question. Why are we like this in terms of the formation of the body? Well, actually, biologists actually give it a very reasonable explanation. And they say that if we are not that naked, if we were not that naked, then we shouldn't, we actually shouldn't have to push our mental capacities that far. So if we have a very well-developed brain and very skillful mind today, this is because we have a very weak body. In order to compensate that, we have very well-developed mental capacities or brain capacities. So this is actually an interesting point of view, because if you want to understand the human, you need to focus in the mental abilities of humans, and you need to understand how they are evolved through time. If you just consider human beings as the modern human beings living in this environment, in this shape, this is quite bizarre and confusing, because we are changing the world so much that we are totally disconnected from our nature. So we cannot touch the real natural world right now. We are trapped inside cities. We produce our own food. No, for example, lions are chasing us right now. We are free of any natural dangers. So this looks quite weird. But if you go back, for example, 200,000 years ago, you can still find human being remnants from these days, because human beings are here almost 300,000 years by now. It sounds like a very long time, but if you look to the evolutionary history, 3.5 billion years, it's a very, very small amount of time. So we're very new species on this earth. So 300,000 years is not enough time to a biological organism can change its shape or undergo a prominent evolutionary change. So it's a very narrow window of time. So what does it mean to us is very simple. 200,000 years ago, our ancestors survived on this earth without any technology, any civilization, even without any, hunting equipment. They just survived. We don't know how exactly, but they managed it. But after 200,000 years, we are, as modern human beings, are born from our mothers with more or less same physiological properties or settings with our ancestors. So nothing's changed that much. So if you look to our environment right now, it's radically changed from the ancient times, but we are the same. My basic claim is very simple. Most of the problems that we have today during our daily lives, in professional lives, in our personal lives, whatever, most of the health problems, most of the psychological problems that we have are closely related with this mismatch between the environment and our biological settings. And I insist all the time, if we understand ourselves in terms of our factor settings better, then we can construct a better life. So it's actually a very simple idea, but I actually had to write a 3-volume book on this, because we have a lot of misconceptions and wrong ideas about ourselves. It's coming from culture, beliefs, wrong interpretation of science, a lot of stuff. I need to clean them up first, and I need to draw a very clean and understandable picture. this is why I struggled too much, like 4 years. Let's make it
among other reasons.
Yes,
but
yes.
this is the main reason. Okay, I buy this.
Yeah. Thank you.
So from what I understand is, as you mentioned, that there is a harmony that we were the reason. Well, there is a harmony that how we live, but we actually don't do that properly. So that harmony is not there anymore. So that's the reason.
But actually, I can give you a very understandable example.
Yeah.
If we go to shopping, right? We go to a shopping mall and buy something. If you go to a grocery, for example, if you go to market, and if you don't have a shopping list in your hands, generally, most of the time, most people will buy more than they need. So this is a fact. All around the world, you can see that. Why is that? Because if you look to your fridge right now, probably your fridge is the same. My fridge is the same. It's filled with food, right? It can, survive us for several days. But I have a market next door, but I take always too much or more than I need. So when we look to our brains to understand our decision-making strategies, we see a strange thing. When we are shopping, especially when we are buying food, the decision-making centers in our brain are very ancient centers, and their software, so to speak, is installed probably several million years ago, and they are very ancient software running in there. So when you go to a market and see something that is edible, right? You're going to buy it. Your conscious mind, your new mind, your human mind knows that tomorrow that market will going to be there, and you can easily pick that up tomorrow also. But your ancient brain is programmed for this scarcity in the nature, and it says, no, there is no tomorrow. Please buy this. I need this. I need to have this. So generally, we cannot stop ourselves. If you don't prepare a shopping list beforehand, go to the market. So this is actually a very basic example that all people can relate to. This is our ancient brain in action in everyday life. When we, when we feel shy, when we furious, when you're angry, all these times, these centers take on the duty and actually stop our rational brain to intervene, and they just go with their agenda. So if we meet with the inner workings or the basic software properties of these areas, we can understand ourselves better and we can analyze our daily behavior much better.
So from your example, that we should have a list in our hand when we go to the shopping.
Yes.
Because that's going to help
because
us.
These deep emotional centers will always fool you because they are very ancient, very wise, and they are right in terms of natural settings, because you cannot find it, so you need to keep it. It's a life or death situation, right, in nature, but in modern times it is useless.
Okay, so now since we started talking about the biology, now you mentioned in your book, you said biology is a path of wisdom. Can we talk about it a little bit when you say biology? Because we have this word, philosophy is the path of wisdom. This is the path of wisdom. But from your perspective, at this time of maybe nowadays, I would say, biology became more important and became the path of wisdom.
Okay, actually, I have a brief answer to this. In the, that ancient Delphi building, right? There is a writing in the entrance says, "Know thyself," right? Knowing ourselves is the actually ultimate wisdom, right? If we know ourselves, we can understand anything. Ancients say something like that. So I believe that deeply. So it's correct. But in order to know myself, especially in this century, in this era, I need to gather the necessary information, available information available in this period of time. I can choose to read the ancient writings or opinions about human beings, but I have a huge body of knowledge, a very interesting story offered by biology, especially evolutionary biology, about the origin and the logic and the evolution of life until these modern creatures that are now crawling around the earth, including humans. So if I know this story, together with the ancient wisdom, I generally call it that way. I don't know if it's the right English, but
we use the timeless.
timeless,
Timeless
timeless,
word. Yeah,
timeless wisdom, yeah.
timeless.
It's timeless because it's just deposited throughout time with several generations. They gathered the necessary information to benefit us, to make us survive better, to make us live better and make us survive. And they transmit them over generation and generation, and that knowledge reached us. But in most of the cases, in most of the cultures, we don't know how to read them. We just memorize them. We do not update them. But the biology, science in general, but especially biology, and especially evolutionary biology, is a very good translator of that ancient information into modern language. It helps us to understand what is going on with the biological world, what is going on in our bodies, why I behave that way and why I don't behave in the other way. So biology tells a lot of stories, a lot of interesting facts about what does it mean to be human. If you read thoroughly the evolutionary history of human, it is not, what do you call it, debasing or demeaning story for human beings. It's a very nice story. If you read it that way, it is actually showing us why being a human and staying as human beings is very difficult. You can understand your animal side, you can understand your ancient side, and also you can understand your wise side. And you can actually draw a new picture about yourself if you learn biology in a very basic level, not like a biologist, of course. I don't advise the people to, study biology in college, nothing like that. But the popular biology books, including my books, are actually offering a new way to think, to get the necessary information, not the details, get the general picture, what science offers, and put it in your life. Just try it at home, and you're going to see the benefit of them. This is why actually I am telling always about the brain and the biology, because I try them in my life. I just, I execute them in different situations, and I find a lot of benefits. So I just want to others to have that.
Right. So you're saying biology can be actually used in our, if we have the knowledge of biology, we can actually implement it in our life as well. Now I'm going to move
actually,
on.
I want to add one more thing. Actually,
sure.
When I say biology, actually, I am probably trying to say the natural philosophy, because we are very, very, away from our nature. We don't see nature. We have some plants around us, but they're not nature. They're also detached from their nature, and inside the cities they struggle to survive. But the nature is a balance. Nature is a very big orchestra. In order to hear the music, you need to go there, like a concert hall, right? You need to experience it. You need to involve in it. So this is what I'm suggesting. The biology is a good door to go into that path.
Because there's a circle of life, and we are part of that circle, but we're out of that circle now. We have to go back to the circle for the harmony to go on and on.
Yes, of course. We feel a lot of ill feelings that we don't like. But if we think about them, when we meet our true nature, it's not a very romantic, rhetoric. It's not like that.
Thing, yeah.
No, not a philosophical. It's a very basic, down to earth choice, actually. Right. If you simplify your life, for example, if you try to meet with your inner self, if you try to understand yourself, and if you try to understand yourself by looking to nature, because you are a part of the nature, even if you don't know or you know, it doesn't matter. You're a part of it.
Right.
And if you compare your natural settings with the settings that you found yourself in from the day you were born, you will understand interesting things. You're not that person, actually. You're living a life, that's good. Probably you're enjoying it, but there are other possibilities that can make you much better and much efficient in this world during this very short period of life.
And maybe happier.
Yeah, much more
When
happy.
you say happy, the word happy, that actually attracts people more than efficient and effective.
Yeah. We can also talk happiness in terms of our biology and brain.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Now, so we're going to move to another question, which is actually very important, I think. Should we simply, like, we have the tendency to leave this thing to scientists, philosophers, theologians, to seek answers for this big question. We have a big question, right? Why we're here and that. But we always leave that to scientists. We always leave that to philosophers. We as regular people, I'm not talking about you, but myself, I'm a regular person. Can they not leave that question to me?
Well, my profession is to be a scientist, right?
Yes.
Being a scientist gives me nothing because science is a professional discipline. You have a job to do and you do it, you get your results, you publish them, so on and so forth. It's not very different from, you know, being a jeweler, for example. You just sell gold and take your money and that's it. So being a scientist is something like that. But thinking about what you're doing is philosophy, is a different thing. It's thinking about your thinking ability, thinking about your life, thinking about your profession. So it is not, it cannot be, you know, left to any profession. For example, if you are a believer in a religion, okay, you cannot, you know, pass all your rights and thoughts about that religion to a person, you know, studying divinity. Divinity is an academic discipline, so they just, you know, study about, you know, was that they just compare the religions and do academic studies. But believing in something or thinking this world in terms of a belief is actually a personal thing. So you need to be expert on this. Everyone needs to be an expert on their lives. You cannot just leave any profession. You cannot just leave it to any profession because now you become jobless. For example, let's talk about art. Most of the people think art is a business of a, you know, professional artist, or religion is the subject of divinity, or health is, you know, the job of medical doctors. Actually, it's not. All of them is very, very important for every and each of our human beings. We need to take care of our health. We need to understand our body. We need to think about our beliefs. We need to actually, sorry about that, the phone call came. And if we don't deal with them, if we don't interest with them, then actually we cannot find anything to do in this world. So we must find something to deal with, right? And we find very, you know, meaningless or unnecessary subjects in our lives. For example, we start to consume everything, okay? By consuming, we generally try to feel ourselves alive, but it's not the way. This capitalist culture is actually feeding from it. Whenever you consume, you are a human being. If you don't consume, then you're nothing. Actually, you know, this worldwide system generally advocates that, but we are not that. If you understand the evolutionary story of human beings, consuming that much is only makes us more hungry. We are not satisfied with that. Actually, the human beings are the only creatures that create problems when their stomach is full. Okay, when they're full, they create problems. No other creature can display a bizarre behavior like this. No other. But we are just the opposite. Because when we are satisfied in terms of our body, our head starts to, you know, seek for a meaning. Okay,
Mhm.
seeking for meaning is peculiar to human brain, and we still try to understand why. This is the biggest question, actually.
Right. So going back to our default settings. Now that's important because that's the main idea that you wrote this book. What keeps us from tuning ourselves back to our default settings? So we have default settings set up, but something actually take us away from our default settings. And tell me a little bit about that, because
Well, actually, okay, I have a little list here because
sure.
you asked me that question before. I'm just following from the list. First, presumptions, and we have also false beliefs. We have different traditions, and impose us different things. We have personal habits. We have cultural habits. We have geographical habits. In the people surround us. We have addictions, and they are very serious. For example, I can now list this five, bullets of factory settings right now. The first one is, for example, about the movement or exercise. But our addictions, for example, our laziness prevents us from that. Or eating less is very hard right now because we're addicted to certain foods. So we have fears, for example. Fears are actually keeping us apart from living a decent life. And the most important reason, if you ask me, is the fundamental idea that I mentioned at the beginning. We are gradually becoming strangers to ourselves because we have a constructed self within this culture, and we don't know any other alternative. So we accept it as a reality, and inside that reality we construct an image of self, and this self is not ourselves, I might say. So when you become a stranger to yourself, you cannot know where to go, and you always look for someone to direct you, someone to guide you. This is why we always watch very carefully about some specialist to come up and tell us to eat, to say us to eat something and don't eat something, do this and don't do this. We love formulas because of that, but we don't need formulas. We need to know ourselves. We need to have some courage to build our own lives, to construct our own lives. So this is actually these are very natural consequences of being human, by the way. I'm not blaming anyone.
Sure.
I am just
Sure,
like
sure.
that.
We're all in
I
the
have
same boat.
presumptions. Yes, of course. So actually we are reminding to each other. This is what I'm doing. I'm reminding first to myself and to the others, and if anyone else just reminds me the same thing, I'll be grateful. This is why I wrote this book.
In Turkish or in Arabic, the word insan, the word human, comes from the person who forgets things.
Yes,
so that's why I think we keep reminding us what needs to happen. But one thing that you mentioned that attracts me very much is the fact that there is no recipe for every person, that every person has his own recipe. Rather. They
Look at the
can't
fingerprints.
really, because there are people. I'm sorry.
Our fingerprints are unique, like our body, like our minds. We are unique, but we have surrounded by some common rules. If we understand the common rules, we can generate our own formula. This is the basic idea behind the humans factory defaults. Okay.
Okay. And then the thing that, for instance, the word that you use, presumptions are a form of enslavement. So you use the words slavery. Now we became slaves of the things that we created, I guess.
Well, actually, one ability peculiar to humans interests me. It's called courage. Courage is actually you can only see it in humans because courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the ability to act or move in the presence of fear, despite the fear. No other animal can do this. If an animal just fears of something, it just escapes or freezes or fights with it. Okay, but humans do a different strategy. It can perform a different strategy. It looks what it fears. It sees some possibilities behind it, and may decide to act just, through that fearful thing that, faces him or her. So this is actually a very, very peculiar ability that we can find in humans. So why do we have such an ability? We should ask this. If we think about evolutionary standpoint, that the same thing comes up, because if there is an ability in you, it needs to be beneficial in the history of human beings. It's obvious. If you do not act with courage, you become a slave to your circumstances. For example, quitting smoking is a brave thing, right? Why? Because you have an addiction, and this addiction always pulls you towards it, and you cannot resist this because it's not necessary. It's not harming you at that point. You don't feel anything, but it gives you some kind of joy, and you continue to do it. But if you think about that, most of the smokers, when they quit, they feel a fear-like sensation inside them, because they just, this is called the withdrawal reaction. When you take out a substance that someone is addicted to, and this creates a pain-like sensation inside. But human beings can take that pain and act against it with courage. So courage actually is a tool to change ourselves, to expand ourselves. And by this ability, if you look to the far history, 100,000 or 200,000 years back, human beings just leave the South Africa, which they originated geographically, and they actually migrated all around the world to the North and South Pole. They went everywhere. In a couple of thousand years, they just spread it all across the earth. So this is actually a very clear sign of courage. They just go out and started to discover. So these were our ancestors, and our settings are quite the same. So how do we use this ability right now? If you don't use it, you become slave to your circumstances. And if you use it, it will expand you. So this is a very basic look for this little tiny ability, seemingly unimportant, but in a sense, it's very important for human beings. So be courageous, just do something. This is
something that we should use for fixing our default setting as well.
Yes.
I understand. Now, we go through this 5 settings. You categorize them under like 5 settings for some reason that you're going to tell us.
Yeah.
Why these 5 things?
As I mentioned before, it just emerged in a TV show. I was talking, and the, Deniz Bayramoğlu, the moderator of the program, asked me a question. Hocam, can you tell us how can we live our lives better? How is it possible? And I just wrote down 4 or 5, items on my paper on my lap. After the program, I just take that home with me. And when that program published on YouTube, a lot of people just mentioned that small area that I, put these items into words. They liked it, because in the beginning I mentioned we all have, as human beings, have some factory setting like things, and we should obey them. And the factory settings just came about in that program, and I studied on that list for a couple of months. I used the items of that list in my presentations. I developed it by telling people. This is my way of working, by the way. I just always tell, and while I was lecturing, it develops itself. So it just came about. I don't know the exact process, but at the end, it satisfies me. It's like musical composition, right? It just sounds right. But when I checked it in the literature, not only scientific literature, but also this ancient literature or wisdom literature.
Right.
I saw a strange thing. For example, every kind of religion that I can know of, every kind of religion advocates more or less the same things to people, to their believers, for example. Like, for example, if you like, I can just
Sure.
go over them.
Let's go over the 5 so
okay.
our audience would know this.
Okay, the first one is move or exercise, because our bodies is not designed to sit still like this. We need to move because our ancestors cannot survive just by lying on their backs, because the nature is so wild. They need to move constantly. They need to explore new places. They need to find new resources. So they need a constant movement. Because of that, their athletic properties are just passed on to us. If we sit still, then we become sick and we die earlier than necessary. The second setting is about eating. We need to eat less because we are evolved in a very scarce environment. There were not much food in the past, and our ancestors were eating like us because our brains are consuming too much glucose and oxygen. So you need to feed it. You need to eat whatever you can find. So they are very greedy like us. But right now we have living in abundance. There are a lot of stuff around us. So we need to say stop. If we eat too much, then we can die from fullness, right? Not from hunger. We used to die from hunger. Right now we die from fullness. So the second is eat less. The third one is we should construct healthy and emotional and tight bonds with the others. Social bonds are very important. If we are alone, if we left alone for a long time, our body reacts to this very negatively and we get sick and we may die just because of this. And the fourth setting is about stress. We need to learn how to lower stress because our brains are the only brains that can generate virtual stress or, without any apparent reason, we can just generate stress reaction in our body. If you think about your credit card 3 months later, you can generate stress hormones. So this is very interesting. And we are the only creatures that generate ulcers in our stomach just because of stress. No other animals can generate stomach ulcers, but we can do it. So we need to learn manage stress. Because in the wild, including ancient humans and all animals, have that same stress system, but in the wild, only when a danger occurs, the stress system kicks in and save our lives. But here right now, when in the morning, especially ladies, when they open up their wardrobe, what am I going to wear? Then they secrete stress hormones. So it's a very hard life for human beings. We need to learn how to manage it or, lower it down. And the fifth one, the most important one, we are created to push any kind of boundaries. So we have kind of an instinct that push our every type of boundary. It could be your personal or self-perception boundaries. It could be geographical boundaries. It could be psychological. It could be, sportive, whatever you think of. If we push the boundaries, we feel ourselves happy. If we are trapped in a routine life, then we get bored very easily and we depressed, and generally we get sick by it. So this 5 very simple steps, probably most of the people that are listening right now know them in part or as a whole. We know them, but if you look at them generally, as I mentioned before, every kind of belief system is actually advocating more or less the same thing. Every kind of religion has a set of rituals that make you move. The most sportive one is probably the Islam. 5 times a day you do some stuff, right? Moving your body. And every kind of religion just tells you to get up and do something with your body, with your muscles, or something like that. The second one, eating less. We are in the Ramadan month right now. Mm-hmm. And every religion, including Buddhism, without any apparent, God figure,
Right.
has its own fasting ritual.
Right.
So fasting is, inseparable part in every religion. And it's interesting because it is generally regarded as the beginning of, self-education. If you educate your soul, if you educate your body, you need to start with fasting. Keep your distance with the food and earthly stuff. The third one, social bonding, is actually the main purpose of beliefs. Beliefs makes us brothers and sisters. They connect us together. We help the needy ones, and so on and so forth. It's actually supporting this item. And managing stress, as far as we know, the best practice to manage stress is to believe something. If you believe something, if you believe that very short and transient life is for nothing, then you are relieved. We are the only creatures that know its death is apparent, that it's going to die. We are the only creature that knows that I am going to die. So it's a very harsh reality. We also just, give any damn about that. We just live our lives, but we know we are going to die. So it's a very stressful thing. But beliefs generally says us death is not the end. It's only a transition. It's only a door. You're gonna, continue. Your psyche, your mind, whatever, your soul is going to continue. So relax, do good deeds, and so on and so forth. So it reduces our stress. And finally, the fifth one, pushing the boundaries. We are, animals, so to speak, in terms of our body. We are included in the animal kingdom as a biological creature. But if we live like an animal, then we are a very problematic creature. Now we can see the signs of it, right? We just, trash the earth. Now the climate is changing. Everything is going very bad. And by advocating to push our animal boundaries into something better, to change ourselves into possibly an angel-like, status, actually religions and these ancient tellings are trying to help us to improve ourselves. So actually, if you look at this is not a very new or bright idea of mine. It's actually a common problem of human beings for thousands of years, and everyone tries to remind us this. It could be from a divine source, it could be from a philosopher, whatever you like to call it, but our needs are the same. The factor of settings is not changing. We keep forgetting it, and someone is going to remind me that. And in these days, probably it's going to be me and the people who read that book, because they're going to tell about that to their neighbors.
But I mean, we all need this methodology. So I think that you did a really good job on collecting these things. While the like eating and exercise, the movement, and or the relations and stress, most of the things we heard. But I had never heard the thing about the boundaries, like expanding the boundaries. That's something I think that you included. You put that into this this whole thing. So I think that was brilliant.
Well, actually, in the third book, which I'm going to finish right now, as soon as possible, I promise.
Yes.
But in the third volume, it's all going to wrap up in a very different package, because the interrelations between these factor settings and their relations with each other and with our lives, and especially this boundary pushing instincts and its relationship with the other settings, is going to be giving a very unique sense of what does it mean to be a human, because I didn't see anything like that in any other resource. Probably it's going to be surprised. It's going to be a little bit annoying, probably for most of the people. It's annoying for me because I wrote it. Even I find it annoying. But this making someone annoyed is a nice way to change them. So I will try to annoy people to feel feel compelled to change themselves.
Okay, you're a wonderful scientist. You're a wonderful person. You're a wonderful Hoca, but you're not a wonderful PR person. Let's start with that.
Yeah, no. I don't know about PR because no thinkers, no great scientists or no prophets just go into any kind of PR. So I just tell it, and if it's valuable, people will recognize it.
Right. Well, I have several questions remaining, but we have like 6-7 minutes, so I'm just gonna go ahead and well, we probably need to do that because we were going to talk about chaos, which is one of the things that you, which is going to take a long time. So maybe that's going to be next time. Every book has its own story. So let me wrap this up with this. In terms of your purposes of writing this book, this trilogy, is there any broad message that you want to communicate to the whole world?
Yes, actually, there are several messages, but the main purpose could be this. I have 3 kids. I realized something about life, and if I don't teach them that, and if I don't try to wake them up, they will go into this, sleep of generations more deeply. So this is why I wrote that book. Please, if you read that, we are now translated it into several languages, including English.
We're in the process.
Yeah,
let me say that we're in the process of translating this book into English first, Russian, and Azerbaijani language right now, as we speak. Sorry.
I am very excited about that, by the way.
I'm very excited too.
But if you read that book in any language, please tell the stuff that you understand from it to another person, especially to your family, because we are making these errors or wrongdoings over generations and generations because we have some very false thinking patterns or traditions formed on the way, I don't know how, but we are just living with it. So I am trying to change this mindset and to try to make every person a messenger for their surroundings, for this very basic fact. Please tell everyone we have some different things to do, and we are not came to this earth living this mundane life, okay? We can do much better. And actually this COVID-19 infection right now puts us all at home, tells us a lot of stuff right now. You are doing wrong, it says. This is not a civilization. This is just a false accumulation of a living organism. If you put 20 million giraffes in a city and put a virus in them, they all gonna die and they suffer like us. But giraffes are very clever. They don't do that. They live in harmony with their environment. What we do in Istanbul, for example, we packed up 20 or more people just very narrow space. And this is going to be the result. Also in New York, in Shanghai, and any other big city in this world. This is not natural. Our education, our cities, our transportation, our technology is not designed for human beings because we don't know human beings yet. We need to understand these basic facts. If we develop a technology suitable for humans, it's going to be a breakthrough. It's going to make us different. And there are a lot of ways to do it. There are a lot of ways to do human-friendly cities. Right now, our cities are for cars and transportation. So cars are very happy, but humans are not. So we need to change this immediately. And if this humans default factory settings, or whatever we're going to call it in English, will help this a little bit, I'll be proud of that.
I think it's going to have an effect on people because we have this problem, and this is not only a problem for Turkish people, this is a problem for everybody, and everybody's trying to find a solution for this. And now, well, I'm glad that the Turkish guy is actually providing a solution. Now, it's a philosophical solution from one point of view, but it's a biological solution from this other perspective. Because the idea of, like, I'm being an engineer and thinking about that, we always have this idea, the last 200 years, this last 200 years, proportionally compared to, you mentioned 200 million, well, how many years you said that the
200,000 years, 300,000 years actually, the history of human beings, 300,000 years, and 3.5 billion years is the age of life on this earth.
Right.
Which one are you asking me? 3.5 billion?
No, I'm talking about the man, the human.
The man, yeah, the 300,000.
Like
yeah.
For 300,000.
Yes.
300,000 years, and the last 200 years, these guys have been seeing the green all over their lives, you know. And then this is in your DNA or whatever, in your thing, right? You pass it on to other people. That your ancestors, they are very accustomed to seeing the green, and nowadays we don't see the green. And proportionally, the last 200 years is nothing compared to 300,000 years.
Nothing.
So
it's
now,
just a glimpse, just a blink of an eye. It's a very narrow, and the settings are not changing. We are longing for it. We love to go out. For example, we make cities with order, but we run away from it to the picnic to the nature. Why is that? Because we miss that. If you see this, if you connect with your nature, not with the trees and forests, I'm not talking about that. In your inner self and your nature, you're going to find a similar peace in there. And by the way, the final thing I should mention probably, because I'm a neuroscientist, and neuroscience is becoming a very broad field, interested different disciplines now. It's interested different expert in different disciplines, and every discipline has now a neuro version. For example, there were marketing, now it says we have neuromarketing, there were law, and we have neuro education, so on and so forth. And this approach, this IFA approach that I try to describe in my book, is actually going to help most of the people from different professions to understand human beings in a very basic level, and generate their technologies, strategies, applications, and ideas according to this very necessary foundation. So I advise, especially to the technology developers, to understand this, because we need that technology. We need that human-friendly technology as soon as possible, because right now, this technology is killing us very slowly. So let's change it for a human-friendly technology.
So basically, what you're saying is you're actually offering a framework rather than a knowledge. It's a package that can be taken and it can be implemented in any kind of profession, any kind of things to make it better. Especially education.
I'm now studying on an approach that put this idea into education as a curriculum. Now we are working on it, and it's going to be interesting because mostly our kids need that. Our kids need to have that information and have that experience in their lives as soon as possible, and we are studying on it also.
Wonderful. It was great having you. It seems like we have 1 minute, then Instagram is going to take us away. It was great having this conversation with you. I hope the people, not the Turkish-speaking people, but the English-speaking people, happy with us. And we will continue doing that because we have several other questions that need to be answered. Thank you very much for your time, Sinan.
We continue on YouTube. Bye-bye.